You're listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast, where I give you insight, awareness, and enlightenment about your parenting and your relationship with your kids. In today's episode, I am answering a question from Barry in the UK. But before we dive into that, I wanted to share an update. So I'm not sure if you all listened to the episode that Jillian asked a question in Colorado about her daughter not sleeping in her own bed. But she sent an update, and I want to encourage you because this is very exciting. Let me read you parts of the email that she sent, and we'll celebrate together. I wanted to update you on how things are going. It took about a week, but she is now consistently sleeping in her bed without difficulty. No more homeless child outside my bedroom door. Thank you so much for your help. I returned to previous episodes where I heard about nighttime struggles, which helped me with appropriate verbiage. One night she made herself so sick she vomited, which was a pleasure, but I did not cave. Jillian, huge high five and a huge congratulations. And what I think this communicates is we know that the child-centered model works. We know that it's effective. And we know that when we have a confident plan and we feel prepared to tackle the struggles in our homes, we can be confident that we will have the outcome that we desire. And Jillian, thank you for the update. That really does prove what we know, which is that these strategies and tools and techniques are effective. We just have to stick to them, and we have to be confident in what we're doing. So these work when we work. And thank you, Jillian, for the update and letting me share that. Okay, so let's get to Barry's question now. And Barry's is about interacting in the CCPT manners. And so reflecting feelings and providing limits. He's been executing those things, but still having struggles. So Barry, I really appreciate the email. I'm going to read parts of it and then we'll dive in together. I have 2 children, an 8-year-old boy and a 6.5-year-old girl. Their mother and I separated over 2 years ago, and co-parenting with her is challenging. I believe that I am undermined or slandered when they go to their moms. And I can really struggle with them both sometimes. I find it challenging because it is just me parenting. And if they start shouting, hitting each other, calling names, it can feel like I don't have enough hands, mental agility, physical agility, or space to get a word in or keep them from hurting each other. Typically, it is my son hitting either my daughter or myself. When he does it, I say, "Your sister is not for hitting. You can choose to hit the couch, but she is not for hitting." And then he says, "Yes, she is," and will continue trying to hit her while also calling her names like stupid. If I physically take him upstairs, it feels like I am abandoning her and giving him positive reinforcement. All right, so let me pause there. There's more to the email, but I don't want to get too far ahead, so we'll kind of take this a little bit at a time. So let me start with the co-parenting scenario. That is a really common struggle. Many people share that with me at the center, also through emails from listeners. And really one of the things that is encouraging about this parenting approach is that we can't control the other environments, but we don't have to. And so essentially what that means is, Barry, you control your household, you control your environment, you control your relationship with them. And you don't have to try to worry about what's happening over there. And if you are getting any kind of indication that things are being said over there that are not true, you remain completely neutral, you remain unemotional, and you say, "I wasn't there. I'm not sure what mom told you, but I didn't say that." Or, "I wasn't there. I didn't hear what mom said that I did, but I didn't do that." And you don't get into an argument. You don't engage in any kind of power struggle. You just tell age-appropriate truth, and you make sure that they're aware that what they heard was not true. That is the easiest way to deal with that kind of scenario. You're going to remain unfazed by whatever it, I mean, obviously it hurts, obviously it's hard, but outwardly you remain unfazed by whatever it is that the children say that they were told or that they think or that they feel because of what they've heard from someone else. It's really important that you are just truthful and direct. So I wasn't there. I'm not sure exactly what was said, but I never said those words. And that is enough to make it clear that it's not necessarily truth just because they heard it somewhere. So that's how I would handle that first part. The second part is, yes, when it's 1 against 2, 2 children against 1 parent, that is tricky. And it is often very difficult to feel like you can navigate those kinds of things. I think what's helpful is you are using child-centered language. You are using the limit-setting language. So it sounds as though you might be missing the first piece of the limit, though. You are not, from what you emailed anyway, you're not reflecting the feeling, need, desire, or wish. So when your son gets angry and is hitting your daughter, there's a reason. So you need to say something along the lines of, you're really upset right now, or you're really angry at her, or you're irritated by what she said. Whatever the scenario is, obviously it's going to be different depending on the context, but you want to make sure that you are including that first component, because if we jump straight to the limit, we're missing the child feeling validated. And that's a really important piece, because the child isn't wrong for feeling that way. It's the behavior that needs to be adjusted. So we want to make sure that we validate that. So when your son starts hitting, instead of just jumping straight to your sister isn't for hitting, it needs to be, you're angry right now, but your sister is never for hitting. All right. Now, Barry, when you feel like this is going sideways, which it can sometimes, it's important to keep in mind that you're going to set a limit 3 times. And if the child is unwilling or unable to comply after the 3rd time, ultimate limit kicks in. So in that case, it becomes the if-then choices. So if you choose to hit your sister, you're choosing X negative outcome. If you choose not to hit your sister, you're choosing positive outcome. Which do you choose? And that makes it very clear, because when he says, yes, she is, and then continues, he's willfully choosing not to comply with the limit. And if that happens 3 times, we go straight to ultimate limit. And the consequence needs to be tied to his currency. What matters to him? What's important to him? Is it TV time at night before bed? Is it reading books with you before he goes to sleep? Is it spending time with his friends? Whatever matters. Is it dessert after dinner? I don't know. Dessert before dinner? Eat dessert first? Whatever. So what is it that matters to him? We label that his currency. That's what's going to be worked into the ultimate limit, because it's very impactful when he realizes, ooh, if I choose to hit her, I'm choosing not to have dessert tonight. That is not worth it. And it allows him to develop self-control and self-regulation. So we move to the ultimate limit setting if he's unwilling or unable to comply with the limit 3 times. When you said if you physically take him upstairs, that should not be the outcome when you provide an ultimate limit. You should not physically do anything. He has to learn to self-control. If you pick him up and carry him upstairs, you're teaching him, if you get as out of control as you want to get, you cross the line however many times, I will control your behavior for you. I'll just remove you from your sister. I'll just take you somewhere else, and then you can't hit her anymore. He learns nothing about self-control in that scenario. Now, you might say, if you choose to hit your sister again, you choose for me to hold your hand so that you cannot hurt her. But that would be an extreme scenario. You would want it to be a currency-based limit most of the time. All right, so that tackled that portion of it. So now we're going to continue reading. When an accident happens, sometimes my daughter will call herself stupid and say that it's all her fault, which is heartbreaking in itself. But then my son will agree with her and pile on the name calling. It's one of my triggers, and I'm trying to unpack that. But in the moment, I'm trying to say things like, you're angry at her, but she's not for name calling, and give him options like going to find space to say what he needs to. Then he just pushes buttons. All right, everything you're describing in your son's behavior is power and control driven. And so if you start filtering everything through that lens and you start seeing everything in light of that understanding, he is grasping at power and control because he feels that his life is out of his control. He has no control over the fact that his parents separated. He has no control over the fact that he goes back and forth between 2 homes now. He has no control over the fact that he's the oldest child, and therefore more burden and responsibility falls on him. He has no control over the fact that you and your ex don't seem to be able to co-parent effectively. He has no control over the fact that she might say negative things about you to him. None of these things he has any control over. So therefore, when kids feel that their lives are out of control, they will grasp at any measure of power and control they can get, which is what he's doing. So you're really angry at her, but she's not for name calling. I would go a much broader household limit. So that might be an in the moment limit, but you can also, at a neutral, calm, established time, say, I just want to make you both aware of some household rules. In this household, people are not for name calling. And then that would be universal, that it would apply to both of your children. In this household, people are never for hurting. In this household, people are never for yelling at. You can establish household rules in a neutral moment that you then fall back on in any given scenario. So your sister is not for name calling. That is a situationally specific limit. But if you had the broad household limit already established, son, you know that in this household, no one is for name calling. That will become a standard for everyone. Your daughter, your son, and yourself will all abide by the household rules. Sometimes that's helpful to do in light of behaviors that are likely to take place. Okay, so now we'll continue. I try to do 15 minutes each of special one-to-one time some evenings while the other has a shower. Is it enough? Yes. We ideally want to shoot for 30, but 15 is a helpful start. And so while one is in the shower, absolutely, you make that a priority. You make sure that the child knows that they get to be in charge. They get to decide how that time is spent. And it's just special relationship building, connection building, trust building, bond building time together. It absolutely is enough. It just needs to be consistent. A weekly part of the schedule. Nothing gets in the way of it. That's very powerful. I feel like I'm a good dad. I spend time with them at their level, and I'm also a responsible parent, not just a fun one. I try to understand, validate, empathize, and 4 out of 5 times it works. Let me pause there. Barry, high five. I hope that makes you feel very proud, that 4 out of 5 times doing what you've learned to do and being the kind of dad that they need you to be, 4 out of 5 times it's effective. That's a huge win. I hope that you celebrate that. In the 1 in 5 times it doesn't, and I don't do something well, if I raise my voice or shout, it seems to galvanize their negative views of me, despite the fact that I try to repair with them. All right, let's talk through that for a second. We know that in general, we know that psychology tells us that if we have 1 negative event, we need an average of 7 positive events to counteract that. This is how we focus on the negative instead of the positive. This is a generalized component of the way that our brains work. So we have to have 7 positive experiences to counteract 1 negative one. This is why child-centered play therapy as a parenting approach is so impactful and powerful, because it establishes consistent positive experiences as daily routine. And then the scales tip the other direction. So yes, it's actually very normal that 1 negative event is going to be a big deal for your kids. But one of the rules of thumb that I teach that comes from the parent training curriculum, Landreth and Bratton's work, is what's most important may not be what you do, but what you do after what you did. So in those moments where you're not at your best and you may not use the skills like you wished you would have, it's not as important what you did in the moment. It's what's important what you did after what you did. So when you make amends, when you apologize, when you say, I know that I could have handled that differently. I know better than to yell at you. I shouldn't have shouted at you. I'm sorry. That repairs relationship. It gets fractured, but we can repair it. But also keep in mind, the more positive experiences you create, the more that will naturally balance the scales a little bit. Okay, and then finally, there is a routine with it all. If I can get through the first few hours of the barrage with calm and rational responses, normally they reach a limit and the floodgates open, and once they cry, I know that afterwards they will be more relaxed and they will lean in. I've noticed that if I'm calm and they reach the floodgates, that is the key to breaking through to them, and then we're able to have relaxed quality time together. All right, what that tells me is both of your kids are internalizing. Your son is more of an externalizer than your daughter, but they're both internalizing a lot of emotion, a lot of stress, a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst. And when you see the power and control, and when you see the argument and the conflict and the disagreeing and all the things that you're describing, it's their manifestation of their internal struggle. Kids will always show us their pain through their behavior. And so when they're behaving that way, it's because they have all of this junk that they're carrying around. And what you're describing, when they reach their breaking point, as you say, and the floodgates open and they cry, it's a release. Think of it as the thread wrapped around the spool really, really, really tightly. Well, when the thread snaps, all the tension gets released. So when they have that moment where it all comes flooding out, of course they're more relaxed. Of course they're more calm. Of course they're more relational, because they finally have had a channel and an outlet for all of that. That's a very healthy and appropriate process, but we want to get to a point where they don't need that. It doesn't get to that point. So that's why the pillars are so important. That's why reflecting their feelings, providing them with choices, setting limits when needed, using encouragement phrases, the reflective responses, the be with attitudes. Those are the kinds of things that we cultivate with kids so that they don't build all of that up. If they build an emotional vocabulary, they can get their needs met. If they build self-esteem, they feel more confident to handle what's going on. There's all kinds of outcomes that are tied to the use of these parenting strategies. So that's why we're working so hard to be very adherent to the child-centered play therapy approach. And then finally, you said, it feels like my son is getting more and more oppositional. He backtalks a lot. He searches for my buttons. He disagrees. He won't take guidance. And instead, he changes things to something he knows will hurt more. All right. He's grasping at any measure of control that he can get. And he's showing you that he's hurting. He's showing you that he's angry, that he has all kinds of emotions. And the most helpful way to work on that is quality time, unconditional acceptance, and adherence to these principles, the pillars, the reflective responses, and the be with attitudes. The more you are able to lean into those, the more he will naturally behave in self-enhancing ways. We know this to be true. So Barry, I hope that encourages you. I hope that encourages all of you, because I know how consistently these messages are emailed to me. You're not alone, Barry. Lots and lots of people are in this scenario. And it's tricky. You know, it's hard to feel like, oh my gosh, I just don't know how we're going to get through this. You will. You have to have a framework, which you do. You have to have a strategy, which you do. And you have to trust the process that kids will naturally behave in more self-enhancing ways when we have stronger and more connected relationships with them. So I hope that that gives you some encouragement, Barry, and you're able to make some changes. Keep me updated. Just like Jillian sent me an update, I would love to hear from you. If any of you all would like to email me a question, reach out to say hello, pose a scenario that you want me to chat through with you, please reach out, brenna@thekidcounselor.com. Have a great week. Love on your kids. I love y'all. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Parenting Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and to subscribe to our newsletter, please go to www.playtherapyparenting.com.